This demonstration will illustrate the use of JavaScript to animate a sprite sheet that produces an explosion of particles when the user clicks on the stage or moves the mouse across the stage. I'm starting by importing a sprite sheet. And it's difficult to see, but there are 13 tiny sparkles varying in size and intensity in this sprite sheet. And this comes from a CreateJS demo which I downloaded from the internet. And each image frame in the sprite sheet is 21 by 23 pixels. There are 13, and the X registration is 10 and the Y registration is 11, which is basically the center of the image frame. I'm moving it off stage because I don't want it part of the animation, part of the final movie display. I'm renaming it to Sprite because Sprite is the variable name in the JavaScript I'm importing. I'm changing the background color to very dark, and I'm making the sprite sheet programmable so that its variable name is global and I can access it from inside JavaScript functions. I'm going to start adding the JavaScript. I'm pulling it in from the example, the CreateJS example. The main workhorse function is add sparkles. This is called when the user clicks on the stage or moves the mouse across the stage. And what it does is it clones this sprite count number of times, which is dozens to hundreds, and it assigns a starting X and Y value, which happens to be the mouse position at that point in time, assigns a random alpha, a random scale in the X and Y direction, and sets up some velocities. It creates properties for velocity in X, Y, Y, and scaling and alpha. And these are random numbers. And it starts the cloned sprite at a random position within the sprite sheet and adds it to the stage. Next, I'm adding the code that's executed when the user clicks on the canvas. It calls the add sparkles function. And I'm adding the code when the user moves the mouse across the canvas. Calls the same function, but the arguments are different in value. Oops. I'm adding the code associated with the tick event. The ticker class in CreateJS emits ticks to advance the animation along the timeline, and it can also be sent to this tick function to advance JavaScript programming of objects. This code is called about 20 or so times per second, depending on the frame rate of the movie. I need to make a change here. It's probably not absolutely necessary, but I think it's prudent. There may be things on the stage, and there are things on the stage, which I don't want this JavaScript to be acting on. So I'm going to exclude objects which don't have the property of these velocities. So if a sparkle doesn't have a VX property, which was added dynamically in the add sparkles function, then I'm just going to continue on skipping this and go back up to the for loop. What this does is it changes the velocity of y and the velocity of x. It decreases them, which acts like gravity and friction. And it advances the x and y and the scale and the alpha depending upon the velocity values. And when the alpha of the particle gets less than 0, or the sparkle gets outside the domain of the canvas size, then the child is removed from the stage. Now it should work. So I'm clicking on the canvas and I'm getting explosion of particles. I'm moving the mouse across the canvas, likewise getting an explosion. Now I want to show you that this is also compatible with doing keyframe animation. I'm adding text to the stage. Changing its color so it's more visible, and I'm moving it across the stage. So at the beginning it starts on this side, and when it gets to here it's on that side. Now I'm going to play it again, and you'll see that both animations are occurring simultaneously. That's the end of the demonstration.